Hello and welcome to Pride of South London Fan TV. Ali here, bringing you my match review of the game at Goodison Park between Palace and Everton, which of course finished 3-0 to Everton. A really frustrating day for Palace. In fact, let's get into it. Let's analyse the performance. Can we even call it a performance? It was utterly dismal and, to be honest, totally predictable. And before I get into my usual features like Vieira's rating and man of the match, let's just look at the situation. As I've said on social media, sometimes football is a lot simpler than we put it. We don't need to go around the houses on this one. The fact of the matter is we have a Conor Gallagher, Kiate, and an injury to James MacArthur shaped hole. And that's going to cause us problems. And we haven't, that has been clear. That was clear in the first half against Wolves. And I think perhaps that second half performance against Wolves, where we had the energy and we came back and the crowd on our backs and behind us. And that's papered over cracks, really, because really our midfield is lacks cohesion and structure. There's more cohesion and structure in the Conservative Party right now than there is in our midfield. And there are certain things that is hindering Vieira right now. And, Decore obviously is out and that exaggerates the problem. But our midfield is imbalanced even when Decore is playing. And that's embodied by the fact that he's suspended. He's suspended because he's on a lone mission every game to protect the defence. So let's get into it, though. I mean, there were certain things that Vieira could have done, I think, to negate the issues and negate the problems. Let's start really with Vieira's rating. I'm going to give him a 4. If you look at the team, okay, as we've said, he hasn't got many options in central midfield today. We're short of central midfielders and we haven't got Decore. But he's playing a player. He's playing a player who, in Luka Milivojevic, who's been out of form for 18 months, over 18 months. And he's basically hung him out to dry today because he's not put anyone in alongside him. And Will Fuse is just coming back from illness, so maybe he wasn't quite ready to come back. But he possibly, he could have put someone like Gyro Riddlewell in even. I'm not Gyro's biggest fan. I don't think he's robust or mobile enough at times. But to put Luka Milivojevic in front of, or just anchoring him with Elise and Eze in front of him, who are both attack-minded players, was basically who surprised what happened, what transpired. He was basically left hung out to dry today. And the fact of the matter is he could have done that. He could have put in someone alongside him to sit alongside Luka, because really before the game I said it's either going to be awful, this terrible, or great. And really just hoping before the game, because most Palace fans could see what was going to happen without Decore. I'm going to go to some comments. Ethan Rodriguez Law says, I thought you were bad versus us last week in the 0-0, but 3-0. Wow, you guys look decent when given home crowd at Sellers Park, though. Yeah, our away form hasn't been great recently. Mark Drew, why did the club not address those issues in the transfer market? It's a very good point, Mark. Listen, a lot of people are calling the board out for that. They did, though, have Flynn Downs far down the line. And that's not really been spoken enough. A lot of people are saying, oh, we focused on Conor Gallagher and put all our eggs in one basket. The big rumour is, and it's kind of widely accepted, there's even was a rumour that it went to the even as far as the medical, was that we had Flynn Downs and then West Ham usurped us at the last minute on that one. So you kind of could give them some sympathy on that one. You could then argue, why didn't we have a plan B and a plan C? What I would say, though, is in the past, this football club have panic bought, and we've seen where that's got us. And when we have bought recently in the last few years, we've bought quality. If you think about the likes of Gahey, Eze, and Elise. So I'd rather we get it right in the long run. What I think worries me is that we definitely need to get at least one or two central midfielders in January, really, for me to rectify the season. Because for me, it's a massive waste right now. We've got Elise, Saha, and Eze in the same team. And let's be honest, that might not be the case next season with Saha's contractual situation. And I feel like we're wasting that with a lack of structure behind them. And we need to get a central midfielder in January, but that's not going to be a magic wand for that to happen. It's not an easy market, the January window. It's hard to find value in that window. And that's going to be a big problem for us, I think. Is Fuse still out? Rumours about Fuse and his illness. He's clearly been very ill. He's clearly been ill for the last few weeks. It could well be COVID. They don't always announce that when it is. And clearly, maybe Vieira didn't think he'd recovered. The interesting thing, what I'd ask you in the chat is, would you play Will Hughes in the Southampton game? Because for me, it's a no-brainer right now. He brings calmness on the ball. He brings a quality of pass that has been lacking in the first half against West Ham and the whole 90 minutes against Everton today. I mean, we were just so rushed on the ball today. That was kind of the most telling thing. We couldn't find a player. And what inevitably happened as well with this this whole situation with just anchoring Luca in front of Elise and Eze is we just got passed and ran through as their second goal embodied when they passed from Pickford all the way up to the other end of the pitch. So we have to get someone in there, I think, even to help Decore, because we can't just blame it on Decore being out. I think the midfield in the first half against Wolves was imbalanced. In the opening half an hour against Leeds, there was a big imbalance. But what's worrying me is I'm not sure Vieira is seeing it. In his post-match comments, Patrick Vieira was asked, did you think about playing another defensive midfielder? And he said, no, we need to keep playing the way we are playing. This is a point that I want to make. One of Vieira, and listen, by the way, Patrick Vieira for me is a great manager, and I'm really, really glad he's manager of our football club. And he's still learning. But one of his big mentors, he admits, is obviously going to be Arsene Wenger. Does he have that Arsene Wenger stubbornness that Wenger showed towards the end of his career at Arsenal? You know, when he would certainly persist with certain systems that clearly weren't, or style of play that clearly weren't working against certain teams. Today, you have to be a bit flexible as a manager. Today was a unique situation. He was playing a player in Luka Milivojevic who's been out of form for over 18 months. Why not put someone in there to help, sit alongside him, give him more of an out ball alongside him? Instead, Milivojevic just looked, lost at times. He was what you thought he would be, slow and ponderous on the ball. But to be fair of him, like Decore, he's fighting a tidal wave because he's anchoring with all these attackers in front of him. Who knows what the system was at the end? It seemed like Vieira at the end decided, well, I haven't got any good central midfielders, so I'm going to take the one off, and we're just not going to play any central midfielders. I asked at the end what the system was, and someone by social media just said it was like a 4-0-4-2. It was like he'd pressed the overload button on Football Manager. Let's take some more comments. Mark Drew says, play Hughes for sure if fit. Yeah, I absolutely would, but I think he's been underused by Vieira last season and this season. Ethan Rodriguez Law says, I think Will Hughes is decent. Don't watch a lot of Palace, however, I reckon he's better than Luca right now, that's for sure. Yeah, Luka Milivojevic, very good player back for Palace in the day, but last 18 months plus, he's just not been in form. So, listen, I think for Patrick Vieira, I'm going to give, I think he got some things clearly wrong today. I would have given Luka Milivojevic more help. The other thing I'd say is, in terms of that point about the stubbornness, he has that with certain players as well. He took took Elise off before he took Jordan Ayew off today, which I was surprised about. Because if anyone's going to come up with a bit of magic, you choose Elise over Ayew, and now it's kind of exaggerated in my mind because Ayew did play slightly better than Elise today, but Ayew did one of those crosses that just doesn't get past the first man just before he hooked Elise. But if anyone's going to find that magic, it'll be Elise. Elise is the man who produced the cross just after half-time for Eze against Wolves. Elise is the man who came up with a brilliant set piece to get us an equaliser against Leeds. If anyone was going to come up with that moment of magic out of the two, it was going to be Elise when we needed a goal. But instead, he kept Jordan Ayew on. And I think he's got certain favouritism and stubbornness over certain players as well. But there you go. So for me, Vieira has issues. Some people will say he hasn't been supported enough by the board in the summer. For me, I'm not going to throw that accusation out. For me, I think it was a tricky window where we missed a few targets, notably Flynn Downs. Hopefully, we can try and rectify that in January, but it will be a difficult window to do so. But I think there are a few things Vieira could be doing to help himself and, more importantly, the team and the club. And that is to sometimes be a bit more flexible in his approach. And today was one of those days where I think Luca needed someone in alongside of him. I think it's damning and telling for Jairo Riddleworld that, I think if he's not picked today, when is he ever going to be picked as a central midfielder? It's clear Vieira doesn't rate him as a central midfielder. There was rumours that Riddleworld was off in the summer. It looks like the writing's on the wall, really. Sooner than later, he will be leaving Palace, I think. But there you go. A very disappointing performance, a very disappointing day. But we'll go again. I mean, the thing that I think is in our favour right now is I don't think the top 8 is as locked in as it used to be. We've got a Leicester fan in the chat today, I think, but they're not. No, they're obviously bottom, and they were a couple of seasons ago challenging for the Champions League. You've got Wolves who were sort of in the top 10 in Europe at one point with Nuno. They're now right down with their managerless right now. West Ham not quite hitting the heights of last season and have that Europa Conference distraction. We get a win against Southampton, then we're looking right back at that top 10 again. So I think there's hope if we could just get a few wins before the World Cup and then get some players in at the start of January. This season for me can still be rectified. They're big ifs, but I'd still fancy us with the games to go to have a go at Southampton and Forest. I think they're the games that we could get some 3 points from in both those games potentially. That would get us 6 points. That would get us right at the table. So I still got a lot of hope for the season, but I think we absolutely, right now, the problems, as I said at the outset of the video, are abundantly clear. We have a Conor Gallagher, Kiete, James McArthur-shaped hole in our midfield. And until we get to January, we can't fill that hole. We're just going to have to make do. But at least next week, we will have Decore back. Ethan Rodriguez-Laws says, we were linked with Samare. Yeah, we were, but nothing came of it. We finished 8th last season somehow, even though we were terrible. So I would remain optimistic if I was a Palace fan. Yeah, do you know what? I still think we can finish high because I still think if we get someone in, or even if we get Will Hughes back in alongside Decore, or even just get Decore in with Eze, Elise, and Saha, there's always going to be goals in this team. Edouard's starting to play better as well. So I still think, there's a big possibility we could finish within the top 10. It's just kind of disappointing because I don't think we're going to have this Eze, Elise, Saha triangle beyond this season. And it would have been better to have a much more of a structure and cohesion behind them, which is sorely lacking right now. Man of the match. I'm going to give it to someone on social media who came up with the right answer, and that was the referee when he blew the final whistle. It's been an awful, awful performance at Goodison Park. But next week we go again against Southampton. And as I said, we win, Decore's back, we get 3 points there, then everything's going to be looking more positive. Let's hope that next week we're feeling glad all over. As always, if you like this video, press the subscribe button and leave some comments. What did you think today? How do we solve this problem in the midfield? What would you do against Southampton? For me, I would have Decore, Will Hughes, and that gives Eze that bit of protection in front of him. Then play Elise on the right and Saha on the left. And let's get out Southampton next week. As always, if you like this video, press the subscribe button.